Good evening. Welcome to tonight's action meeting. First off, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. There's no video tonight, so we're going to have to do it ourselves.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be the oath of office for our 3 new school board directors. Your Honor, who would you like to call up first? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Roesch. He told me how to say his name. Yes. Right. Okay. Do you have anybody here with you?
My wife Nancy's here.
Do you want to come up? We like to do this here. Well, we'll have time for that, okay? So if you would raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I, Alfred Roesch,
I, Alfred Roesch,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Constitution of the Pennsylvania,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations to you too. Wait, come back, because she wants to take a picture. I don't want to deprive her. Here, we'll go like this.
Thank you.
That's my best side, right there. Okay. Catherine Wesley. That's okay. Hi.
Hello.
So if you want to raise your right hand, put your left hand on the Bible. Okay. Repeat after me. I, Catherine Wesley,
I, Catherine Wesley,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank
Thank you. Hi, come on up. You have folks coming up with you?
Yes.
Come on up. Come on.
Everybody.
You can have everybody. The more the merrier. Oops. There's a happy face right there. Okay, ready?
Yes.
You raise your right hand. I, Dr. Wanda Lewis-Campbell,
I, Dr. Wanda Lewis-Campbell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. All right. I'm going to give these to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Leonard, for coming. Appreciate that. We're going to take a 5-minute break, so the families of those who just got sworn in can take this opportunity. You can stay if you'd like. You're more than welcome to, but if you'd like to leave, then now would be the time. So, okay, so see you in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. We're going to call the meeting back to order. And next up will be the recognitions and proclamations. We're going to recognize the North Penn girls and boys water polo teams. And I just want to make this announcement. The school board meeting will be aired on Comcast Cable, Channel 28, and Verizon Fios, Channel 29, on the following dates. Friday, December 13th at 7:30 p.m., Monday, December 16th at 12:30 and 7:30 p.m., Tuesday, December 17th at 12:30 and 7:30 p.m., and then again on Wednesday, December 18th at 12:30 p.m. So with that, if you could bring in the boys and girls water polo teams, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to represent the North Penn water polo team and introduce our athletes here. The team in front of you right now, both the girls and the boys, are on an unprecedented run in our state's history in our sport. Right now, the girls are on a repeat of 6 state titles in a row, and the boys have just won their 3rd state championship in a row. As I heard from our commissioner of our state, at this point, any team that can beat North Penn in a game is an extremely huge win, and these are the athletes that are before you tonight. They came in this year 2 different styles of play, 2 different teams. Our girls, much like our team last year, had a completely new identity. We had some holdovers, some returning varsity players that played a role in last year's state championship, but the identity of the team was extremely new this year. They took that role extremely well. They fought through. In our state championship game against Cumberland Valley, a team that has 2 girls with national team experience, they were able to hold off a very, very potent offense, which typically puts in at least double-digit goals. The team in front of you held them to 6. They never led the game until 53 seconds to go in the game. So this is the 2nd straight year that the team did not have the lead until the last minute. The wherewithal and the guts that these girls showed was extremely, extremely happy as a coach and very proud to see. They did an outstanding job fighting through adversity, coming back at the end, and in the 4th quarter you could see, I think Cumberland Valley understood that this team was not going to be shut down once again. That is our girls' team. Behind them, we have our boys. Our boys were a much different story to the end of their season. It wasn't much of a close game. Now, these boys were freshmen the last time we played Cumberland Valley in a state final. Cumberland Valley thoroughly took a thumping to us. All right? At no point in the game did we think we had a chance to win. And they were that good of a team, that good, that strong, and that balanced. As seniors now, these boys came out and did the exact same thing to the team that they saw as freshman year. Every aspect of our game was working, which led to a final score of 13-4. Our offense did everything that they needed to do, our defense did everything they needed to do, and our goalie completely shut down a very high-powered team, which also had the state MVP as their center player. I'd like to bring up each team. We're going to say individual names. We do have quite a few athletes that are right now either participating in another sport or have another swim meet. A few down there in Atlanta right now. We have 5 of our athletes at the Junior National Swim Meet. And before we get started with the names, I also like to thank my assistant coaches. Tonight we have Brian Fakish here. Jeff Fakish is with our swimmers down in Atlanta, and Mariah Bryan is also one of our coaches. Our first athlete that we have tonight is our youngest and also scored the game-winning goal with 53 seconds. That is Paige Mitchell. Our next athlete we have, junior Casey Brennan. Our next athlete we have junior Stella Burns. Our next athlete, junior Kaylin Daly. Our next athlete who is not here tonight, Rachel Dunn. And our next athlete that is here, Lizzie Corper. We have 3 athletes that aren't here, but I would like to mention their names: Charlotte Tham, Riley Warner, and Abby Broadhead. Our next athlete we have here tonight is senior Nicole Chiappa. Our next athlete, senior Abigail Chicky. So Chicky. Our next athlete, junior Julia Davis. Our next athlete who is not here, but I would like to mention Caroline Dunnigan. Our next athlete, we have senior Bridget Hubner. Our next athlete, senior Grace McLaughlin. One more senior that we do not have here tonight is Jane Montague. Our next senior, Abigail Peters. And our final athlete tonight, senior Olivia Toussaint. Now on to our boys team. Our first athlete, junior Jake Amberger. We have 2 athletes that were unable to make it tonight, junior Max Bachman and junior Luke Engel. Our next athlete, junior Ryan Fakish. Our next athlete, junior Matt Harkrader. We have quite a few athletes here that weren't able to make it tonight. We have junior Valor Jameson, Kyle Stressman, Grayson Campbell, Micah Detweiler, Sean Fakish, and Brian Keeley. Our next athlete here tonight is senior Chris Killian. A few athletes that were unable to make it. We have Jack Kim, William Klein, Evan Mancini, Carter Mitchell, and Luke Schwar. And our final senior athlete, senior Sage Trouts.
Coach Grubb and Coach Fakish, would you like to come through as well? Thank you. Can we get another round of applause, shall we? Congratulations, awesome.
Great job.
Congratulations, great job.
Great job. Congratulations.
That's really something to have 6 state championships. So, very impressive, and 3 state championships. Okay, so moving on then to the next thing would be the audience of citizens. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the November 1st, 2019 action meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on now to the committee reports. Personnel. The Personnel Committee of the Board met in executive session on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019, for the purpose of discussing matters of personnel, including the appointment of staff, staffing considerations for the 2020-2021 school year, collective bargaining, and compensation. End of report. Finance. I believe that'd be Mr. Fusco
That
now.
would be me.
Yep.
The Finance Committee has not met since the November action meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 6th, 2020, at 6 o'clock at the ESC. And a report.
Thank you, Mr. Fusco. Moving on to Safe Schools, Mr. Casa.
The Safe Schools Committee met on November 25th, 2019. Mr. Durr shared that all schools have successfully completed fall security drills as required by state regulation. He also shared the details of a very successful off-site evacuation and dismissal exercise conducted at Walton Farm Elementary. Compliments to the team at Walton Farm for a job well done. The committee then viewed a short presentation by Dr. Kristen Landis and Mr. Kevin Eck of the North Penn Technology Department. Best practices and proposed initiatives related to cybersecurity were discussed. The next meeting of the Safe Schools Committee will take place on Monday, January 27th, 2020 at 6 p.m. here at the ESC. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Casa. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Casa? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Education, Community, and Policy Committee report. Mr. Fusco.
Okay, this is an update from our regular meeting, which was held on December 3rd, 2019. We started with discussion of action items that are on tonight's agenda, adoption of policies. As a result of the ongoing policy review process with the PSBA, Dr. Todd Bauer presented several policies to the committee that had been reviewed by administration, the district solicitor, and myself. Those policies are on the agenda tonight for a first reading. And as well, we need to repeal policies as we adopt new policies. So as a result of that process, Dr. Todd Bauer presented several policies to the committee that will be repealed following the adoption of the policies to take their place. Notice of intent to repeal specific policies is on tonight's agenda. There were also student travel items. Overnight travel requests were presented and reviewed by the committee. Informational items that were covered at the meeting. Secondary special education and inclusion facilitator update. Ms. Colleen Parker and Ms. Kara Weinberg spoke to the committee about the role of the inclusion facilitators at both the elementary and secondary levels. Dr. Dan Kruger and Ms. Shwana Groff discussed the inclusion of 5 special education students in a marine science class at the high school. Overall, this is successful and is benefiting both the special education students and regular education students in their class. The next meeting is going to be held January 7th, 2020. That's a mistake in that. It should say 2020. At 6 o'clock at the ESC. Just not used to saying 2020 yet.
Right.
But,
2020, 2021 is
20,
a
yes.
tongue twister.
Um,
So,
Any questions? All right, end of report.
okay, thank you, Mr. Fusco. Moving on to Facilities and Operations. Mr. Casa, please.
We'll try to rival the length of the
yes,
ESC
it's a
report
lot.
for tonight.
It's like you're gonna
Yeah,
win.
yeah, it's like the drum solo and people can get up. The Facilities and Operations Committee met on November 25th, 2019. A change order from Procom Roofing Incorporated in the amount of $12,190 was discussed for additional work at General Nash Elementary School. The work included the fabrication and installation of a new wall ladder as part of the roof replacement project. All work has been completed. A credit for $9,750 for the wood block allowance was also applied to leave a net change order of $2,440. This item is on tonight's agenda. A proposal from Snyder Hoffman Associates in the amount of $2,640 was also discussed. The scope of work is to assist with the completion and submission of the North Penn School District, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection minor synthetic air quality operating permit. That does not roll off the tongue. The permit is required as part of reporting to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection in relation to boiler / fuel emissions at North Penn High School. This item is also on tonight's agenda. Per the committee's request, a summary table was prepared outlining the use of facilities such as buildings and fields and their utilization from the previous fiscal year. The summary report listed the organizations, the invoice total, staff fees, and the rental fees for the year. Staff fees included audio and visual staff, custodians, food service, security, stage crew, hired stagehand, and technology. Hourly rates are established each year for designated staff. Rental fees are charged based on the North Penn School District Community Use of School Facilities fee schedule, which was effective June 1st, 2016. Mr. Linsky then gave an update on the Crawford Stadium renovation project. Mr. Linsky noted that the project is out for rebid with some minor changes. The last day for questions was November 19th, 2019, and final addendums have been released. Bids were opened on December 3rd, 2019. A quick overview of the schedule was reviewed. Project start June 22nd, 2020. Substantial completion by May 3rd, 2021, and final completion May 28th, 2021. The intent to award bids is on tonight's agenda. Next, Mr. Linsky gave an update on the Knapp Elementary School renovation project. The board approved the Act 34 resolution, and the hearing will be held at Knapp Elementary School on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, beginning at 7:30 p.m. The project is still on schedule, planned to be going out to bid in February 2020. Design work and discussions on phasing are still in progress. On November 13th, Mr. Linsky, the design team, and our construction manager met with Lansdale Borough officials to discuss the project and planned phasing. Some questions in relation to the project were posed to the borough, and we are awaiting their formal response. The meeting went well. The borough offered their cooperation, and they are happy to see that the project is moving forward. Mr. Scrocky discussed the Pennsylvania RACP grant submitted for the Knapp Elementary School and Crawford Stadium renovation projects. $13 million was requested for Knapp, and $3.5 million was requested for Crawford Stadium. This is program requests made with the assistance of state representatives as well. The long range capital improvement plan was also discussed. This will continue to be on the Facilities and Operations Committee meeting agenda, as the list will be constantly updated. Updates to this plan will now be noted with a date or revision number per the committee's request. Color coding was also recommended. Regarding the project priority ranking, Mr. Schneider will review and renumber if he feels scoring change is needed. A new worksheet with new rankings will be presented as part of the 2020 to 2021 budget process. The next Facilities and Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 27th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. here at the ESC. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Casa. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Casa?
I have a question.
Sure.
So for the synthetic minor permit, is there one that exists now in the school district, or this is brand new?
I'm going to defer to someone who's more expert at that than
This
me.
is brand new,
It's brand new?
yes.
Hence why it's $2,600?
Well, we do need the assistance of an engineering firm to complete all the
Right.
paperwork. But yeah, this is the first year we actually had to complete it. And the only reason it's needed for the high school is because of the size of the units at the high school.
The boiler and the emissions?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
was it-
just was wondering because I thought if it was existing, it seemed a bit high.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Wesley. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the North Monco Technical Career Center. I guess Mr. McMahon, Juliane?
Can do that, yeah. The Joint Operating Committee met in November, and the board brief is attached in board docs. The board met to ratify treasurer's report, reviewed personnel modifications, and approved incoming donations. The next meeting of the Joint Operating Committee will be Monday, December 6th, and that's also the same evening as the holiday dinner that I believe we've all been invited and encouraged to attend. End of report.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramic. Moving on then to the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit.
The Montgomery County Intermediate Unit did not meet since our last action meeting, and the next meeting of the MCIU Board is Wednesday, January 22nd. End of report.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions for Mrs. Ramic? Moving on then to the North Penn Educational Foundation. Mrs. Ramic, do you want to read that, or do you want me to?
Oh,
I don't care.
Sure.
Keep going.
The foundation last met on November 4th. At this meeting, we accepted the resignation of trustee John Strobel. John served for several years as a former North Penn employee and will be missed. Juliane Ramic was welcomed as the North Penn School Board Director representative on the foundation. The foundation's new mission and objective, which were drafted at a recent strategic planning board retreat, were approved by trustees. The new mission is to motivate and inspire students and staff through innovative projects and opportunities that enhance the educational experience and educational experiences and resources. The new objective is to raise and distribute resources to advance the North Penn School District. At the strategic planning retreat held in late November, trustees tackled many issues in furthering the foundation's impact and getting the organization where it wants to be in 5 years. Future works include hiring a fundraising professional, making grants available all year long, and increasing individual donations. Trustees also approved the executive director, Christine Liberoski, and other interested trustees to attend the National School Foundation Association Conference, which we're lucky this year will be held in Philadelphia in March. We are thrilled that the national conference will be close to home this year. The foundation recently closed its grant application process for mid-year grants. North Penn staff were encouraged to apply for funding available in January for innovative projects to be implemented by the end of the school year. More than 70 requests totaling $98,000 were received. This is our biggest pool of applications ever. Applicants will be notified by winter break about the status of their request. The foundation next meets on February 5th at 7:45 a.m. at the ESC. For more information on the foundation or the events mentioned, please contact Christine Liberoski at the ESC. End of report.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramic. Are there any comments or questions?
Just a quick comment. Just thank you for that update. It's very exciting as with the strategic planning process and with the initiatives that are being planned. Can't wait to see what else comes before the board for moving forward and fundraising especially. I'd also like to just say I've personally, in touring some of the schools, elementary schools in particular, have had teachers pull me aside and show me what they've been able to do with the grants and the funding, and even had their students talk about it, and it's amazing what that program does. I was really happy to hear about so many people trying to take part in it again this year.
And just a reminder that we all received the end of the year solicitation in our mailbox. And I think it would be really great to be able to put forward to the district and the administration that we have 100% board participation. So I'd like to challenge us all to help fill the gap so as many of these projects can be funded.
I'll note you can give online too, right?
Even better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramic. Okay, moving on then to the solicitor's report. Mr. Summers.
Thank you. I have no report this evening.
Okay. Then we'll see. Move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Dietrich.
Thank you. I recommend approval of the policies as listed.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend the repeal of the board policies as listed.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mr. Casa. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend for approval first reading of the policies as listed.
Do I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Ramic and seconded by Mr. Fusco. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend notice of our intent to repeal the board policies that are listed.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Casa, seconded by Mr. Fusco. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of issuing the notice of intent to award bids to the contractors listed and attached for the amounts stated for the Crawford Stadium construction renovation project, namely general construction to Grace Industries, total amount $6,533,610. Electrical construction to BSI, total amount $1,278,000. Mechanical construction to Hirschberg, total amount $132,900. And plumbing construction to Cooper, total amount $242,800.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. Motion by Mr. Casa and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions?
Question. These bids are how much less than the original bids?
Okay, so it's a little difficult to do apples to apples because there's one particular component that's not included this time that was included last time. But if you throw in that component, namely the the maintenance building, the bids came in almost $800,000 less than last time. But the maintenance building is not part of the recommendation tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
I have a question. So why was the maintenance building removed?
We're not recommending it as part of this bid package at this time. We could revisit it at some point in the future.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd like to thank Mr. Scrocky and the facilities and the business office teams for making sure that this RFP was turned around and run as successfully as it was. Thank you very much on behalf of the taxpayers, students, and the school board.
Agreed. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommended approval to advertise for bids for the Pembroke Middle School Library rooftop air conditioning unit replacement and the Gwinnett Square Elementary School chiller replacement, and for the request for proposals for comprehensive information technology security audit.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend the approval of a change order for Procom Roofing Incorporated with the net amount of $2,440 for the fabrication and installation of a new wall ladder at Nash Elementary School as part of the roof replacement project.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Casa and seconded by Mr. Fusco. Any comments or questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you explain why there's a $9,750 credit?
As part of the bid specifications, there were certain allowances allowed. So the contractor bid an allowance amount. So none of those allowances were used, so therefore that money basically comes back to the school district in the form of a credit. So it's almost like having a change order, if you will, already built into the contract, and if you don't use any of those monies, then it comes back to the school district in the form of a credit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that typical, that none of that money gets used?
Not typical, but in this case, it wasn't.
That's
so
great.
We're pleased with that.
Keep that in mind. Thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the attached resolution authorizing the 2020-21 proposed preliminary budget display and advertising.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Ramic and seconded by Mr. Fusco. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend the award of a contract to Snyder Hoffman Associates Incorporated in the amount of $2,640 to assist with the completion and submission of the DEP required air quality permit application.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Casa and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the personnel items as per the attached.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mr. Casa. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the gifts to the district as listed for December 2019. Copies are in the business office.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Casa and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? I think we'd just like to thank all those that donated these gifts. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the contracts for the district as listed for December 2019. Copies are on file in the business office.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And second? Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mr. Casa. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the overnight student travel items as listed.
Do
So moved.
I have a second? Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Recommend approval of the alternative placements as per those listed. Copies are on file in the Office of Special Education.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Dietrich.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the finance reports. Mr. Scrocky, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Things are going a little too quickly here, so I'll slow things down. I have quite a few items. First off, our rebate program for the 1920 year continues to be very successful, 22% increase over the number of applicants from last year. And at the January Finance Committee meeting, it'll be time to start talking about the 2020-2021 program to see if that would be further expanded for consideration. Secondly, for those property owners that may not have paid their real estate tax bill at this point in time, just a reminder that if the bills are not paid by the end of December, the unpaid property will be turned over to the Montgomery County Courthouse for lien collection. The property will be lien and it'll be delinquent collection. So we highly advise individuals to pay the real estate bill before the end of December because additional fees will be tacked on to the bill. So please see your local elected tax collector if the bill remains unpaid right now. Also a reminder about the NAP Act 34 hearing. This is an opportunity for the board to present the NAP Elementary School renovation new construction project to the community. It's scheduled for Tuesday, January 7th at 7:30 p.m. And we are planning a community tour that same evening starting at 6:30 p.m. Fourth update is for the retirement contribution rate. The retirement contribution rate for the school district was certified last Friday by the PSERS Board of Trustees. The contribution rate for next year will be 34.51%. So simply put, that means 34.5 cents on every dollar of qualified salaries we need to pay into the PSERS fund. Keep in mind that we do receive 1/2 of that back in the form of a subsidy from the state. But 34.51% is the highest rate in at least the last 30 years. The current rate is 34.29, so I guess we can be happy that it was only a small increase, and actually a smaller increase than what was projected last year, and that's due to the success of the investment fund over the past year. That lower rate will save us about $175,000 on a net basis in next year's budget. Also, a reminder regarding the 2020 board meeting schedule, a reminder that most of the board meetings will start at 7 p.m. starting next year. There's two exceptions. One exception is the Act 34 hearing on January 7th. That starts at 7:30 p.m. And then the December reorganization meeting of 2020, that will start at 6:30 p.m. And finally, it was stated earlier about the preliminary budget, and we did have some action regarding the advertising. The preliminary budget will be presented to the Finance Committee, which is a committee of the whole, on Monday, January 6th at 6 p.m. here in this room at the ESC. And the preliminary budget is scheduled for approval on January 16th. Again, a reminder that this is really step one of a three-step process. We have the preliminary budget followed by the proposed final budget in May and then the final budget in June. And the cycle is much earlier this year due to the presidential election. So we actually have a first draft of the budget pretty much finished now. Our plan is to proof that, make some additional changes, and have it published for the board and the community next Friday. Okay, that concludes some of the updates. Oh, also I want to mention that the Federal Reserve Bank held interest rates steady at their Federal Open Market Committee meeting yesterday, so that's good news. After 3 rate cuts this fiscal year, we finally have somewhat of a reprieve. And Chairman Powell indicated that there are no further anticipated rate reductions in the near future, so hopefully we can stay at our current rate. And we receive 1.75% interest rate with our main depository, Univest. In terms of the treasurer's report, cash receipts for November totaled $10.1 million, and disbursements for November totaled $20.6 million, leaving us with total invested balance at the end of November totaling $182 million, and that is about $3 million higher than last year at the same time. I recommend approval of the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? Mr. Scroggie, I'd just like to comment, I was at a meeting yesterday at the MCIU, and there were several other school board presidents there that commented that they would like some information on the rebate program.
Excellent.
So I will forward their contact information to you.
That's great. It's amazing that since that article in the Philadelphia Inquirer ran about 2 months ago, I received about 10 calls from other districts already. So quite a bit of interest in the program, which is great news.
Yes, very much so. Thank you. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next item, we have budget transfers for the month of November. The budget transfers totaled $1,054,053.59. And budget transfers is where we simply move money from one account to another. Many times these budget transfers are necessitated by Pennsylvania Department of Education accounting changes where we need to charge certain items, and that's the case with these budget transfers as well. So we're not overspending the budget, we're basically just moving money from one area of the budget to another. Typically, it occurs within a particular department. So I recommend approval of the November budget transfers.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramic. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the final item we have for action are the sanction and approval of invoice, and I recommend ratification of disbursements for the month of November in the amount of $23,843,425.52.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, wait, we don't need to do that, do we? Sorry. No, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Okay. All right, so motion by Mr. Fusco, seconded by and Mr. Casa. All right, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And finally, for information, we do have our monthly financial reports, and I do summarize them on a monthly basis as part of the Finance Committee agendas.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Scroggie. All right, moving then on to the North Monco Technical Career Center Joint Operating Committee. Last month, I made a mistake and nominated Mrs. Ramic for the Joint Operating Committee position, but I meant to nominate you, Mr. Roesch, so I apologize, and I apologize to you, Mrs. Ramic, because that's an extra committee. I only put y'all on all of them, so I apologize. So I think Mrs. Ramic has to officially resign, correct? And then we can nominate Mr. Roesch, so unless, of course, you'd like to keep.
It's been a pleasure to serve for the last couple of months or a year, maybe. It's a great organization, but I will happily resign and offer that service opportunity to Mr. Roesch.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramic. That's, you're on so many other committees, so you definitely have your work cut out for you this year, so we appreciate all of that. Okay, so.
Madam President, just to
Yeah.
clarify, this is a 2-year term with the Joint Operating Committee.
Okay.
This is from 2019 to 2021.
All right, so I'm going to nominate Mr. Roesch for that term. Do I need a second for that?
You don't, no, you can ask if there are any other nominations,
Okay.
and then motion to close nominations and second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close nominations. All right, are all in favor for Mr. Roesch to have the 2-year term? So that would be 2020 to 2022?
19 to 21.
December to
Yep,
December,
to
okay.
December,
Gotcha.
correct.
All right. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Roesch. All right, additional topics. I do have one announcement I'd like to make for the North Penn Educational Foundation. Let me find my notes. Okay. The North Penn Education Foundation is going to have a gala in April 24th, and that is going to support our capital campaign. The North Penn School District is in partnership with the North Penn Education Foundation, is excited to announce the Unite to Celebrate. It's a community campaign to support the renovations to the Crawford Stadium. Brandon McManus, who is a North Penn High School alum, he's the former kicker for the North Penn football team, and he's the current kicker for the Denver Broncos. He will be joining us on April 24th and April 25th for 2 special events. On Friday, April 24th, we will hold the gala at Pinecrest Country Club, and that will feature Brandon, along with other North Penn High School alumni, beloved former and current staff members, a silent auction, entertainment, and much more. And then on Saturday, April 25th, there will be the first ever Brandon McManus kickball tournament, and that will be held for students throughout our schools. The primary goal of the Unite to Celebrate is to raise funds to support the needed renovations, but also to engage the North Penn community as we build a stadium for the future. An organizing committee has been working for months on the details, and we hope to finalize and begin publicizing this event in January, so stay tuned. Okay. Are there any other additional topics that anyone would like to discuss? Seeing none, audience of citizens, is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All right, meeting adjourned.